I need to get this story out. I think if I tell you, if I just tell someone, then I can live with the choices that I've made. I'm a private investigator, and I run a moderately sized but highly successful investigation and consultant firm. My name's not important, but 3 months ago, a well-off client hired me to investigate the disappearance of her sister. Let's call her Monica. Monica was the kind of kid who got into trouble because her parents always used their resources to get her right back out of it. And she carried the entitled attitude that they gave her into her adulthood. Most recently, after getting pulled over for a DUI and being caught holding more than a personal use quantity of some very illegal drug in the process, Monica was forced into a court-ordered treatment at an upscale psychiatric and substance abuse treatment facility called the Wasserman Center. After her mandatory treatment period was up, Monica called her family to let them know she was out and that she was taking a cab back to her apartment, evidently still disgruntled at the family's refusal to use their considerable money and influence to spare her from compulsory rehab. According to the driver, she asked to be let out downtown, saying she had an errand to run, and that was the last time anyone saw her. The police suspected she ran afoul of some of her own unsavory contacts, and her parents followed that line of inquiry, offering rewards for information and hiring private investigators. My client, though, had other suspicions. She said her sister sounded strange on the phone, her language stilted and toneless, where she was usually loud and extroverted to a fault. The cab driver, when questioned, told a similar story. None of the other investigation firms her family hired turned up anything concrete, but they did turn up rumors about the Wasserman Center, unethical experimental treatments, stuff out of the real-life horror stories of abusive mental hospitals in the early 20th century. The thing is, Wasserman also underwent regular inspections from state regulators and always passed with flying colours. There were no grounds for a police investigation, especially since Monica evidently left the centre under her own power and in good health. Unfortunately, I didn't have any better luck with my own inquiries. My small but highly capable staff and apprentice investigators was shut down at every turn by a bureaucratic wall of silence. But I didn't get where I am in this business by taking no for an answer. I got her by doing what other people wouldn't even consider. It turns out that it's relatively easy to get yourself committed, pretending to be crazy in order to get locked up. After all, isn't exactly the kind of behavior people expect from a sane person. A 911 call, using the right keywords to convince them I was a potential danger to myself and others, was all it took to get myself picked up and sent off for a 72-hour evaluation. Contacts that I'd cultivated in the police department and municipal government ensured that I was one of the limited number of psych cases from police processing who were sent to the Wasserman for treatment. Wasserman is a private facility, but they contract to take a certain number of cases per month from the county as a sort of public service. Once on the inside, I was able to begin my investigation in earnest. I came in knowing it was a high-end facility that frequently catered to the rich and well-connected. But even I was surprised on how, nice the place seemed. It seemed that the centre had a stated policy of cultivating a safe, nurturing environment for the recovery and treatment by restricting the patients as little as possible. just enough to ensure their safety and that of the staff. This openness gave it a remarkably homey feel, and also meant that I was relatively free to move around the part of the complex where my small private room was located. I could also avail myself of the beautifully landscaped grounds that lower-risk patients were permitted to roam freely. There was, no doubt, a hidden perimeter of electronic surveillance and security personnel enclosing this park-like expanse as tightly as any razor-wire fence. But it was kept tactfully discreet from the patients and visitors to this facility. Still, by my second day at Wasserman, I was beginning to think my client had sent me on a wild goose chase. I hadn't found any evidence of anything untoward going on at the complex. There was only one place left to search: the secure wards, where supposedly high-risk patients were kept. I studied aerial photos of the campus. Google Earth can be a PI's best friend. And knew that, in some places, the part of the grounds adjoining those wards was separated by the section I was allowed in by nothing more than a tall, dense hedge, which was difficult but not impossible for me to squeeze through unnoticed when the staff wasn't watching me closely. What I found on the other side wasn't immediately shocking. A group of patients, standing in 4 neat rows, facing the same direction. At first, I thought I'd stumbled on some kind of organized group activity, but there was no members of staff nearby, no one leading the class. I frowned and took a step forward, it being a bad idea to startle a patient in a mental hospital. I cautiously made my way around the group and approached them so they'd see me in their peripheral vision before I got too close. "Hello? Hello?" I called to them, glancing around for any signs of nearby staff. They gave no response, continuing to stare straight ahead. Carefully, I approached one of the patients in the front row, an older man with just a fringe of white hair on his otherwise bald head. "Hi there. Hi there," I said a little louder as I glanced around furtively. He slowly turned his head to face me, and as I saw his face, I recoiled in shock, a chill running down my spine. "I," he replied, haltingly, blinking slightly puffy and discoloured lids over unfocused eyes. I'd seen faces that looked like that before, in photographs. When I was researching the history of abuse at mental health facilities in preparation for my investigation at Wasserman, the man had 2 black eyes, but not the kind you get in a fistfight. This was the telltale bruising that forms from the insertion of a sharp surgical probe under the eyelids and into the brain through the roof of the eye socket during a transorbital lobotomy. The elderly man with bruised eyelids said nothing more to me, turning just as slowly back to face the front after a few seconds. As I scanned the slack, vacant faces of the patients standing in their neat rows, I noticed 2 others with similar discoloration, and one with more bruises that were almost faded. Judging by the docile and transfixed behaviour of the entire group, I suspected the ones with bruising were just those who had the procedure most recently. They'd performed the procedure on all of them. Mass lobotomization was supposed to be a thing of the past, a dark chapter in the annals of medical history, but judging by what I saw, it was very much alive at the Wasserman Center. I pulled out the tiny digital camera I'd smuggled into the facility with me and snapped several pictures of the patients. This was the evidence I needed. Sterling inspected records or not, I knew that this would be enough to at least launch an investigation by the State Medical Board. I made my way back to the hedgerow and forced my way through again, squeezing my eyes tightly closed to avoid scraping my corneas as I pushed past the tightly woven tangles of thin branches and sharp-edged leaves. When I opened them on the other side, I froze. A short, older man in an ill-fitted brown suit faced me, a grim expression on his deeply lined face. I recognized his face from my research. Standing before me was Dr. Henry Wasserman, flanked by two burly hospital orderlies. He sighed heavily, his expression turning slightly sad.
I really wish you hadn't seen that.